right, day 3 for ELA, you're using the word then in a sentence as a transition word. And this one, you're deciding whether and or nor. And means we're connecting two things. Nor means the not. Speaking of not, and this is a knot with a rope, and you have to determine which one of these spellings is correct, and then underline the silent letter. This one you're choosing. That's my puppy. In this one, you're choosing the linking verb that links the favorite treat to what the favorite treat is. And then this one is the R-controlled vowel, or in our case, we think of it as the R apartment. Your passage is my messy room. And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bold words that you're going to put down here at the bottom and write which you think the definition is based on the context clues. And then you have the same colorings that we've done the past 2 days and plus 4 comprehension questions. On the back side is another retelling fiction. So what is the main idea? What are the key details? How would you describe the main character? And why would you describe the main character like that? What is the problem in the story? How is the problem solved? And what is the mood of the story? How do you know? In cursive, we've done the letter E and N. And today we're going to do M. Starts out just like M, or just like, we're doing the letter M. It starts out just like N. Make your candy cane, retrace back up, almost to the top, back down, almost to the top, back down, and curve up. Mario, Mateo, Missy, Maine, Maui, Mexico. Mom drove to Montana. Millie left for Michigan. Millie left Michigan. Don't forget your punctuations at the end of those sentences. Okay, guys, for math, we're doing day 3 as well. You're going to add these, subtract these. These two are both addition with regrouping, and this one's subtraction with regrouping. So that means with subtraction, more on the floor. We got to go next door and get 10 more. I suggest you write them vertically. Write it vertically with 25 on top minus 17, since 25 is greater than 17, to work on your subtraction. For your practice today, you are telling time to the quarter hour. So remember that the hour hand, like on number 9, the hour hand, when it gets, as the minute hand gets closer to 12, the hour hand gets closer to the next hour. So you need to extend this hand out to see which hour it has gone past. Hi guys, so if you remember yesterday, Charlotte remade her web, and she, with some help from Templeton. Okay guys, if you remember from yesterday, Charlotte remade her web, and it went from some pig to terrific. And then by the end of the chapter, with the help from Templeton, she had come up with the word radiant to change it to, and sang Wilbur to sleep. So chapter 14 is called Dr. Dorian. The next day was Saturday. Fern stood at the kitchen sink drying the breakfast dishes as her mother washed them. Mrs. Arble worked silently. She hoped Fern would go out and play with the other children instead of heading to the Zuckerman's barn to sit and watch the animals. Charlotte is the best storyteller I've ever heard, said Fern, poking her dish towel into a cereal bowl. Fern, said her mother sternly, you must not invent things. We know spiders don't tell stories. Spiders can't talk. Well, Charlotte can, replied Fern. She doesn't talk very loud, but she talks. What kind of story did she tell? Asked Mrs. Arble. Well, began Fern, she told us about a cousin of hers who caught a fish in her web. Don't you think that's fascinating? Fern, dear, how would you catch a fish in a spider's web? Said Mrs. Arble. You know it couldn't happen. You're making it up. Oh, it happened all right, replied Fern. Charlotte never fibs. This cousin of hers built a web across the stream. One day she was hanging around the web, and a tiny fish leaped up in the air and got tangled in the web. The fish was caught by one fin, Mother. Its tail was wildly thrashing and shining in the sun. Can't you just see the web sagging dangerously under the weight of the fish? Charlotte's cousin kept slipping in, dodging out, and she was beaten mercilessly over the head by wildly thrashing fish, dancing in, dancing out, throwing. Fern! Snapped her mother. Stop it! Stop inventing these wild tales. I'm not inventing, said Fern. I'm just telling you the facts. Well, what finally happened? Asked her mother, whose curiosity began to get the better of her. Charlotte's cousin won. She wrapped the fish up and then she ate him when she got good and ready. Spiders have to eat, the same as the rest of us. Yes, I suppose they do, said Mrs. Arble vaguely. Charlotte has another cousin who was a balloonist. She stands on her head, lets out a lot of line, and carries aloft on the wind. Mother, wouldn't you simply love to do that? Yes, I would, come to think of it, replied Mrs. Arble. But Fern, darling, I wish you would play outside today instead of going to Uncle Homer's barn. Find some of your playmates and do something nice outdoors. You're spending far too much time in that barn. It isn't good for you to be alone so much. Alone, said Fern. Alone? My best friends are in the barn cellar. It's a very sociable place, not at all lonely. Fern disappeared after a while, walking down the road toward the Zuckermans. Her mother dusted the sitting room. As she worked, she kept thinking about Fern. It didn't seem natural for a little girl to be so interested in animals. Finally, Mrs. Arble made up her mind she would pay a call to old Dr. Dorian and take his advice. She got in the car and drove to his office in the village. Dr. Dorian had a thick beard. He was glad to see Mrs. Arble and gave her a comfortable chair. It's about Fern, she explained. Fern spends entirely too much time in the Zuckerman's barn. It doesn't seem normal. She sits on the milk stool in the corner of the barn cellar near the pig pen and watches animals hour after hour. She just sits and listens. Dr. Dorian leaned back and closed his eyes. How enchanting, he said. It must be real nice and quiet down there. Homer has some sheep, doesn't he? Yes, said Mrs. Arble. But it all started with that pig we let Fern raise on the bottle. She calls him Wilbur. Homer bought the pig, and ever since it left our place, Fern has been going to her uncle's to be near it. I've been hearing about that pig, said Dr. Dorian, opening his eyes. They say he's quite a pig. Have you heard about the words that appeared on the spider's web? Asked Mrs. Arble nervously. Yes, replied the doctor. Well, do you understand it? Asked Mrs. Arble. Understand what? Asked Dr. Dorian. Do you understand how there could be any writing in the spider's web? Oh, no, said Dr. Dorian. I don't understand it. But for that matter, I don't understand how a spider learned to spin a web in the first place. When the words appeared, everyone said they were a miracle, but nobody pointed out that the web itself is a miracle. What's miraculous about a spider's web? Said Mrs. Arble. I don't see why you say the web is a miracle. It's just a web. Ever tried to spin one? Asked Dr. Dorian. Mrs. Arble shifted uneasily in her chair. No, she replied, but I can crochet a doily and I can knit a sock. Sure, said the doctor, but somebody taught you, didn't they? Well, my mother taught me. Well, who taught the spider? A young spider knows how to spin a web without any instruction from anybody. Don't you regard that as a miracle? Well, I suppose so, said Mrs. Arble. I never looked at it that way before. Still, I don't understand how those words got into the web. I don't understand it, and I don't like what I don't understand. None of us do, said Dr. Dorian, sighing. I'm a doctor, and doctors are supposed to understand everything, but I don't understand everything, and I don't intend to let it worry me. Mrs. Arble fidgeted. Fern says the animals talk to each other. Dr. Dorian, do you believe animals talk? I never heard one say anything, he replied, but that proves nothing. It's quite possible that an animal has spoken civilly to me, and I didn't catch the remark because I wasn't paying attention. Children pay better attention than grown-ups. If Fern says that the animals in Zuckerman's barn talk, I'm quite ready to believe her. Perhaps if people talked less, animals would talk more. People are incessant talkers. I can give you my word on that. Well, I feel better about Fern, said Mrs. Arble. You don't think I need to worry about her? Well, does she look well? Asked the doctor. Oh, yes. Appetite good? Oh, yes, she's always hungry. Sleep well at night? Oh, yes. Then don't worry, said the doctor. Do you think she'll ever start thinking about something besides pigs and sheep and geese and spiders? How old is Fern? She's 8. Well, said Dr. Dorian, I think she will always love animals. but I doubt that she spends her entire life in Homer Zuckerman's barn cellar. How about boys? Does she know any boys? Well, she knows Henry Fussy, said Mrs. Arble brightly. Dr. Dorian closed his eyes again and went into a deep thought. Henry Fussy, he mumbled. Remarkable. Well, I don't think you have anything to worry about. Let Fern associate with her friends in the barn if she wants to. I would say, offhand, that spiders and pigs were fully as interesting as Henry Fussy. Yet I predict the day will come when even Henry will drop some chance remark that catches Fern's attention. It's amazing how children change from year to year. How's Avery? He asked, opening his eyes wide. Oh, Avery, chuckled Mrs. Arble. Avery is always fine. Of course, he gets into poison ivy and gets stung by wasps and bees and brings frogs and snakes home and breaks everything he lays his hands on, but he's fine. Good, said the doctor. Mrs. Arble said goodbye and thanked Dr. Dorian very much for his advice. She was greatly relieved. Tomorrow's chapter, chapter 15, is called The Crickets. Don't forget to be reading your books at home. I did have one student who sent me a video of her reading a story, and she showed me a show and tell. Her mom sent it to me via Facebook. If you would like to send me a video, you're more than welcome to do that. Have a great afternoon. I miss you guys so much.